Randall, second by Dr. Warner.
You gotta be quick.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
I move that the School Board of Stafford County convene a closed meeting for the following purposes. Pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A19 of the Code of Virginia, to discuss school safety and security with the Stafford County Sheriff Decatur, including information subject to the exclusion in Subdivision 14 of Section 2.2-3705.2, and 2, to protect its bargaining position or negotiating strategy pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A29, to discuss the terms and/or scope of a public contract for custodial purposes that involves the expenditure of public funds.
Second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. We are now in closed session.
Dr.
August 23rd, 2022, be certified by adopting the following resolution. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the School Board of Stafford County hereby certifies the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board.
Second.
You call the,
Second.
all right, we have a motion by Dr. Chase, second by Dr. Warner. Cast your votes.
I thought we had to do roll call.
Don't we have to
Oh.
do roll call?
Oh, that's right.
For closing.
Agreed.
Ms. Guy? Yes. Ms. Halstead? Yes. Ms. Healy?
Yes.
Ms. Randall?
Yes.
Ms. Ziegman?
Yes.
And Dr. Warner?
Agree.
The motion passes.
All right, any motions coming out of closed session? Seeing none. We'll end the special call meeting and come to the report. We're in the closed session. Come to we have to start the agenda over?
Yeah.
Where's, is that this one? Yeah. All right, well, we're called to order. Roll call, please.
Dr. Chase?
Here.
Ms. Guy?
Yes.
Ms. Halstead?
Here.
Ms. Healy?
Here.
Ms. Randall?
Here.
Ms. Ziegman?
Here. Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Chase, second by Ms. Guy. All in favor?
Aye. Oh.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That brings us to the SCPS Convocation After Action Report. Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this event once again with the board and to share some information with the public. I've added 2 items to board docs for the board and the public's review. One is a short presentation slide deck, which is really just an outline, and then a much more detailed 16-page report of the events and some of our corrective actions that we are planning to put in place, and many of which that we have already put in place for future events in Stafford County Public Schools. I do want to take this opportunity to yet again just to echo how absolutely sorry I am that this event did not go as planned, and what could and should have been a fantastic event and a unifying event for our staff and for our community ended poorly, and we have a lot of challenges that we need to face as a result of that, some that are structural, many that are logistical, and some that are cultural. And I would like to detail some of those for the board this evening, and then talk about what happened at our event, some of our findings that we were able to unpack, and of course, most importantly, how we learned from this event and where we go from here. Our convocation event was planned for August 5th. Convocations are not new to Stafford County. As a matter of fact, convocations have happened in the past, most recently and most memorably during Randy Bridges' term as superintendent. There was a convocation, but held in 2 parts because we have such a large organization and split between 2 parts. So it was a little bit of a unique opportunity for us all to be together in one spot and in one location. It may be difficult to see on the screens, but hopefully you can take a look online. Behind the words on this particular slide is actually a picture of Stafford County Public Schools in Mass. And it was a fantastic opportunity to bring our folks together to talk about our new strategic plan, unite around a vision, and to have a professional development speaker and some fellowship. Unfortunately, our day did not go as planned even from the start, with some of our logistical challenges. And when temperatures got past the point of our ability to respond, many people were experiencing health-related illnesses, and 93 persons were treated for health illness, and 8 were transported to a hospital. We have a number of concerns, as I mentioned, everything from our arrival to our departure, how we supported some of the health considerations, poor communication at several levels, our ability for resources such as water and food, were some of the major issues that we targeted early on. So I want to break down a number of things in the report that is shared with you. And the report has a timeline of events. It has a protocol from OSHA. We did self-report as having some issues that needed to be corrected. So there's a protocol and some questions that we answered as part of that. We also detailed our findings and concerns, our next steps. We also included a financial report for you and for the public, and we also included some frequently asked questions. In this report, we also hyperlinked documents where they were available that also supported some of the things that were said and that were done. We thought that might be helpful for people that were interested in this, and they can find that as part of the PDF. In terms of the event itself, we definitely started the event and made some decisions at the 8 o'clock hour to proceed based on weather forecasts that were lining up with what we had planned on. However, those weather forecasts changed. And in particular, our cloud cover and our temperatures got out of control very quickly in the 10 o'clock hour. And we did have to call an early end to our convocation in the 11 o'clock hour, right at the end of 10 o'clock at 10:54. This did initiate an earlier exit than planned. We actually did not follow our early exit procedures. We followed a totally different unplanned exit, which was a little bit quicker than what we had planned, but still very slow, very cumbersome, and not well thought out in hindsight. So some of the challenges and some of the things that I want to point out as far as our findings, and I'll begin just by saying that one of our challenges on any type of event or any type of anything that we do in the school system is communication. And the event communication, both before, during, and after, was a challenge. In particular, consistent communication in terms of how we communicated with all staff versus school administrators, an imbalance of information given to school administrators versus all staff, outlets for staff to respond and to give feedback. Some of these areas needed direct attention. We also had significant issues at the actual event itself in terms of telecommunications. We had a limited access to radio support, and with that many cell phone users in one location at one time, critical communications were not being communicated at the times that they needed to be communicated. Not having an adequate backup plan for this was troubling during the event and troubling at the, after the event as well, because we believe that this was definitely one of the critical failures that, that inhibited this event from being more successful. After the event, making sure that our staff was safe, finding mechanisms to make sure that they could get home safely, our buses to depart from the facility in a timely, orderly, and logistical manner. also a significant challenge for us. Logistics. We definitely arrived with the best of intentions to have our teachers walk down a red carpet, and our teachers certainly had that opportunity when they were coming into the stadium, but having buses depart or release their staff 2 at a time was not nearly significant to get our stadium filled in the time manner that we wanted to. This caused a traffic delay that was fairly significant and needed to be addressed by local law enforcement. That would be Fredericksburg City law enforcement. And with our transportation department, our security department, and Fredericksburg law enforcement, we were actually able to resolve that one. But unfortunately, the speed in resolving that created congestions in other places, in particular person congestion inside the stadium. And it also led to folks not knowing where their bus was parked when we were departing. That definitely was an issue. Some other logistical challenges that we faced had to do with how we dismissed from this particular event. There were conflicting directives from law enforcement, from the loudspeaker, and from what was actually planned by event organizers. That confusion was definitely amplified by the number of people that we had at that particular event. That could have been handled very differently, and certainly better coordination and having emergency plans and backup plans is definitely something that we need to do moving forward without question. Having a different approach to weather management in general seems to be a logistical challenge that we're going to need to address as any type of large activity, whether it's graduations or whether it's convocation or whether it's any type of field day or large event. This is something for us to consider, whether it's hot weather or whether it's cold weather, whether it's an indoor activity or an outdoor activity, making sure that we have weather appropriate supports or environmental appropriate supports seems to be consistent. Having multiple water stations or even misters or cooling locations definitely seems to be something that we absolutely should have done, but we also have other logistical challenges that we didn't fully get the chance to amplify. This was not at the forefront of everyone's mind for understandable reasons, but we did have a fundraiser at that event for the Fredericksburg Food Bank. It raised only a portion of the funds that we intended because very few people knew where the kiosk was to make a donation. And several people wrote into us after the event saying, hey, where can I make my donation? I missed the opportunity to do that. Well, that's very sweet of them to think about that as a priority, but the reality is we didn't leverage our public address system, we didn't leverage the video screen, we didn't leverage a number of the logistical things and tools that were at our disposal. We didn't leverage them how we could have leveraged them, and that definitely was reflective of other things that didn't go well. Planning for an adequate water supply for a large group. Thinking that you have 12,000 bottles of water sounds like a lot of water, and it certainly was, but it wasn't enough. Purchasing water on site was a good solution in the moment, but not a satisfactory solution in the aggregate. And even though we transported some water even back to central office and to the warehouse, in the moment it was difficult to make sure that communication was getting to people to make sure that they know where access was, and that we provided access in a large format. The last one is probably the most significant and hardest one to swallow, and maybe even the hardest one to correct. And it has to do with the culture of Stafford County Public Schools. And though our event definitely aimed to chip away at some of the barriers that prevent our organization from being its best, meaning that we tried to create an atmosphere where we were unified as an organization, there are still challenges in Stafford County Public Schools in terms of how we communicate with one another, how we support one another, and creating a culture where people feel supported to speak up when they are not well, when they have a disagreement about something, or when they want to challenge a decision that's being made. This is something that I think we all need to focus on moving forward as an organization, and in particular, me and my leadership team, as we try to move forward beyond this event and try to create a school system that is unified in support of this board's vision and mission. We have a lot of issues that we need to look at, that's for sure. And though there are a lot of things that we're proud about in our school system, there are certainly things that we need to address. Which kind of brings us to some of our next steps. And we detail this in this report in a little bit more detail. But even though we started the planning for this event early in the year, in the calendar year, having more robust pre-planning, I think, would have definitely helped solve a lot of our challenges. In particular, who you have at the table and who is a participant in that planning definitely makes a big difference. We did include emergency services, but that was a very last-minute inclusion and not one that was a part of the earliest stages of planning. And moving forward, having a lot of third-party supports, whether it be event planners or whether it be emergency services, whether it be first responders, or whether it be just other agencies that we have at our disposal, which we have many, having them be a part of walkthroughs and rehearsals, critically important. This board also had discussed with me bringing forward a policy and a regulation for school board consideration in terms of how we deal with large events, and we will certainly bring that to the governance committee because there are a lot of lessons learned that we bring forward. Evaluating the weather is always a challenge for superintendents in particular. When it snows, you're either a hero or there's lots of unfriendly things that are said about you online. It really kind of just depends. Heat events are no different, that's for sure, which kind of brings into question whether or not we can't create metrics for evaluating our environmental situation when we host an event, whether it's a graduation, a convocation, or some other large format event. We certainly use the wet bulb reading, and there's a link to that calculator in this document when we talk about student strenuous activities, but there really isn't one for adult passive activities. So thinking about how we might come up with metrics that might help drive some of our decision making is definitely an area that we should explore and to look at. There's simply no excuse for not having on-site working telecommunications. I take full responsibility for the failures of this event, and certainly the planning and telecommunication errors is something that definitely falls on my shoulders to ensure that we have an adequate communications tree, working on-site telecommunications, and folks who know their roles and responsibilities and are able to communicate freely. It's a critical step as we move forward in any type of large format planning. Our emergency plans definitely need to include something that's more than one-dimensional. The event space that we utilized for this particular event does have a number of emergency exits, and very few of them were used in this particular event in the effort to try and create order and process. But sometimes order and process should give way to personal needs and making sure that we are accommodating for personal needs. And those things need to be discussed ahead of time. That's not something that can be done or should be done on the spur of the moment, and certainly not in the thick of heightened passions and concern. And that needed to be done ahead of time for certain. In terms of expectations and guidance, this definitely comes back to clear communications with our staff and how we support our staff, and being crystal clear with what our expectations are, and also how we support our family members. Team Stafford very much is a family. We saw that although not necessarily the way we wanted to see it on August 5th. But we definitely saw how Team Stafford bound together as a family. And when you see family members who are struggling or in distress, that is something you never want to see your friends and colleagues in that state. And it's traumatic. And to that end, we need to be clear about what we are allowing, what we're not allowing, why, and how we got to the decisions that we got to, and be better stewards of that information for our folks. And to that end, I think that this is an important small but first step in terms of how we work together and how we grow together and how we learn together is full acknowledgement that this did not go well. And hearing people in terms of how they struggled with this event and how they struggle with this ongoing and addressing some of the trauma that may be associated with this event is critically important. We definitely set out with the objective of trying to create a fun atmosphere that would help unify our county, and we definitely unified our staff and our county, but not in the way that we intended by any stretch. We definitely have a fantastic and supportive group in Stafford County. Team Stafford is a great place to live, work, and learn, and to be a part of. And Stafford County is a great place. This event certainly didn't diminish that, but it definitely set us on a path of how we might do things better moving forward. So with that, I submit this report for the board as information, and we'll certainly entertain any questions that the board may have, although we've all talked about this substantially, both in meetings and outside of meetings, and offered this report to the public as well. And certainly will entertain any questions that the public may have, and I'm a pretty easy person to find and talk to, and certainly offer that as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Any questions on the board, Ms. Halstead?
I just have a couple for clarification points, and bearing in mind that, you know, again, this was my life for almost 20 years. So first, it's beyond nice to see that we have a leader who stepped up immediately without batting an eye to accept responsibility for this. I did a lot of this stuff and fought for months to get someone to accept a small amount of responsibility for even the smallest things going wrong. So thank you for doing that. We talked about backup plans. I can tell you can have 18 backup plans, and the thing that you didn't plan for is going to be the one thing that goes wrong. On-site communications, I know our communication walkies were somewhere else. They weren't there. Were we offered communication devices by the Nat Stadium folks once everything happened?
Yes. So we do have access to walkies. We use them in our work on a regular basis. They do require maintenance, and they do require to be reprogrammed on occasion. The access that we had to the ones that we usually use were being maintained and were being reprogrammed by law enforcement at that time. So we were reliant on the telecommunications that were available to Nat Stadium, which was not nearly the amount of walkies that we would normally have for an event. We had access to 4, which is a lot less than what we would normally have, which would be dozens.
Okay. So the next question I have is, did you spend any time identifying what you did right? So you don't have to, you know, like we spent a lot of time identifying what we did wrong, and then we focus on fixing that, and we forget to identify what we did right so that we don't, you know, waste time. Well, we don't forget, but we also don't waste time trying to fix stuff that was right.
That might be a different conversation for another day. I will say that we spent our time addressing the issues that were in front of us. I know that there were some things that were positive that we did right. We might have to go back and think about that at a later date.
Okay. I'm going to say 2 things just because I did spend a long time in this field. You know, responsibility is spread across the spectrum of everyone that was involved in here. That includes you, that includes Fred Nat Stadium, that includes the people who attended, who both had a great time and who didn't have a great time. That includes our external partners who could have also provided support. in more positive and affirmative ways that wasn't provided. So that's really something that we should all take from that, is when we have an event like this, I personally, from the number of emails I received, that there was positive feedback on the intent. You know, we can always focus on the negative, which some folks choose to do. We can always tell each other that apologies aren't enough because of whatever we're feeling very emotional at the time. But forgiveness is huge, number one. And number two, there were a lot of folks that really appreciated the time, effort, and energy. And I implore us all to remember, as adults, we have a certain level of personal accountability. And that's not for you, that's for everyone. I mean, it's for myself as well. But it's hot in Virginia in August, we all know that. And I don't want to see, hold on, I don't want to see us not focus on what happened, but I want us to remember too, maybe we need to look at a more robust messaging service to help folks remember to prepare more adequately. And I don't know how many messages went out to our staff beforehand, reminding them to dress appropriately or bring their own water or whatever. So those are certainly other things we should put in terms of communicating with our staff. Personal accountability isn't, oh, I'm not a checklist person, so it does help me if I have a memo that says, don't forget, this is your checklist. So also taking a look at those things. And finally, I just want to say that I really feel like we're a media kind of oriented society. We have a 15-minute news cycle that can blow everything up pretty quickly. That's what happened with me because I wasn't there. And I got a rather inflammatory, you know, newspaper article that came to me before I even knew anything else that was happening at that time. So for anybody who wants to listen to the after-action report and really think about it, it's important to also remember to look back at what you did or didn't do in those time frames, so that moving forward, you can also maybe hopefully react a little different the next time it happens. I'm sorry. Oh. Who is it? Just kidding. But anyway, so no one, look, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think this whole thing wasn't bad. It didn't go bad, but it didn't go good, but it didn't go bad. It just went. And I don't want us to walk away from something like this carrying scars and scabs that we need to pick at all the way through the end of the time. I think there have been a lot of lessons learned here. But I think everyone has to learn those lessons, not just this school system. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. I'm just going to go down the line. Ms. Guy?
Are you trying to figure out?
I was trying to figure out her microphone thing. This isn't my wheelhouse, so I'm not going to say I am a mom. I'm a mom. And so, you know, maybe more momming with the planning. But I do love how you, you know, I love how you lead and how you accept criticism or critique, and you take it all on the chin. I would just say, yo, it's August. I think this was a fantastic event up until it wasn't. And I loved the message. I loved everything about it up until it was really hot. So I think all that could still happen in the beginning of October on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say.
Ms. Randall?
I made all my comments that I need to make at the last meeting. You know, this is what we wanted from you. I think you, again, I appreciate the fact that you took the responsibility. I appreciate the amount of time and effort you taken to cover the things that we discussed and putting together this report, and I just appreciate that. And I'm grateful that our staff members that were in harm's way that day are feeling much better now. And I'm grateful for the people that helped them, and I was happy to be helpful to that cause as well.
Thank you. Ms. Sigmund?
I don't have a lot to say either. I do appreciate that we had this evening and putting this information out there. I do want to encourage anyone who has any additional questions or concerns. Like, this does not mean having this meeting is not the end of a conversation. I'm hoping it's an opportunity to put some information out and potentially get further questions, you know, answered and concerns addressed. So please continue to reach out to any and all of us with anything further. I was glad to have attended. I wished it would have gone as planned. I love those type of things. You know, thanks again.
Dr. Warner?
Thank you for the thorough report, and I appreciate that it's public, and I think the public will be interested in seeing this. I think that it's, you can never plan for the unexpected, so it's the fact that you took responsibility, you evaluated the situation, and we go forward, and that's the way life works.
Dr. Chase?
Yes, so I haven't heard, is everybody okay? Okay, so I just want to make sure that that was the case. And then,
Dr. Chase, if I might, the folks that we have heard from have affirmed that they're doing better. There certainly are some folks that, still have concerns and still have certainly feelings about the event, as well as maybe some lingering medical concerns, but folks are feeling better.
okay, good to know. And I want to apologize to staff. I mean, I'm really sorry for everybody who, had heat-related injuries and all of that. I mean, we as a board, this is not something that we want. And then third, I tried to access some of the links in the PDF up here, and I'm not able to. So staff needs to correct that so that if somebody's looking at the PDF and they want to read something, that they're able to actually get that. So if staff could please correct that, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, and I want to thank you for this very thorough after-action report, which I'm planning on studying. And I don't think that we will experience these issues again. I think someone mentioned, Ms. Halstead, you can't plan for, the unplanned, or several people mentioned that. But I anticipate that the next time there will be an abundance of over-planning, which is never a bad thing. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll bring you brand new mistakes next time.
Well, but lessons learned, that's how we move forward. All right, we have 8 minutes. Dr. Warner, how long do you think we're going to need for our self-evaluation? More than 8 minutes?
Ms. Randall and I talked, more than 8 minutes.
How many minutes? I'm debating just setting our meeting to start. We put this off so many times, I'd really like to get to it.
Done in 30 to 45 minutes.
Okay, well, is there any objection to starting our meeting at 7 then? That will give us time to go through either that, or we can start our meeting at 6:30 and then come after the meeting, come back.
I'm confused.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay, all right, I thought we had more. All right, we've already had 2 meetings before, 2, 3. Okay.
Yeah, we're at evaluation.
Okay, is it still Tuesday?
We're going to be out of here before 8 o'clock.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. All right, well then let's move.
Go underneath
Now,
the
some of
jacket.
us took a break
So
before
away
this,
with
some
you.
of us didn't, so I'm going to say we'll start at 6:30. We're gonna do this in the executive conference room. We'll start at 6:30, start the discussion.
Is there anyone here, though, that wants to go to, or they can go in the back? All right, so they'll go in the back.
Sure.
No, it's not.
Hey, you just said to read.
Oh, okay. All right, we're starting now to the 6:30.
Okay, can I just interject and first start and say, if everybody has not, if they could please, send to Tricia any evaluations that you have on Missy so we can get that finalized and sent to her. If you did that, that's great. If you haven't, if you could do it by Friday.
And if you got them, you better
I'm
send
sorry,
them again,
can you
because
say
I
the
don't
date
remember
again?
getting
What's the
any.
next Friday? Next Friday.
This Friday.
This Friday.
This
Is also,
Yes,
is Missy
please.
evaluating us as well? She should.
She should.
I would like
You're
to.
making me have a hot flash from nerves.
You know, we'll take care of you.
All right.
We'll take care of us.
Wait till we evaluate you, and then you can evaluate us based on that.
Okay, the only purpose of this session is just to do our self-evaluation. So I'd like to go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
So at the retreat, we assigned ourselves several tasks to create and implement a governance plan, code of conduct, and governance handbook, to review and amend the 1100 level policies, to consider and establish advisory committees, and we did all those things. We got them all done, and I think we were very cooperative, and we worked really well together. We've added new advisory committees. We've moved the EDOC committee to a school board committee. We've added a budget committee. We didn't add anything else. I think those are the only ones.
We continue transportation.
And we continue transportation. So we've just got that. So I think that our committees are a real strength that we have. And I look forward to not having all those reports at the same time.
Well, and I think that what's been very nice, and like Ms. Healy said, we're gonna come back to it.
I just want to look at the
But it's really
termination.
nice to get these advisory reports and have them filtered through the superintendent as to the suggestions, how applicable can we make them to either policy or to budget or to practice. So I would just very much want to say, please keep these committees going, because I really appreciate and value their information and input that they give. And I love working on them too.
Absolutely. So the one thing, there were several themes that have come up in our conversations, and when I talked to Ms. Randall today about this evaluation, there were three things that kind of linked to our strategic plan that seemed to be overarching goals. So we should have the division goals, and we should have our goals as a school board, and there are ways that we can coordinate those. One of the things was literacy, safety and school security, and then the other one was community engagement.
So are you linking this to this? Am I supposed to be following
It's sort
this,
of,
or is this just a general?
this is general,
Okay.
because, yeah.
Well,
Because
like,
these seem to be themes though that we, what are they? Literacy,
Okay.
school safety and security.
Because for me to be numeracy.
See, and I feel like literacy above that only because you have to be able to read the word problems. That's my thing.
I mean, I
You
think,
can't qualify, you can't.
I think literacy and numeracy
that
are
the same.
are both equally valid.
Yeah, but we never talked about numeracy, and we always talked about literacy, and so numeracy just gets forgotten.
Can
So,
you
yeah,
define
it's-
numeracy?
Yeah,
Those of
it's-
us not in the field.
Yeah, yeah. So it has to do with a sense of numbers and a sense of quantities and estimation and all that kind of thing. A sense of time. You know, people who have problems with numeracy often can't figure out what time of day they're supposed to be one place or another place.
That's what's wrong with my daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
So mine.
So that's a good point too, though. I mean, because those are estimation and all that stuff, those skills are
Really important.
really
And,
important.
and that's fine.
I don't think they are, I think it is because we don't use the word.
Right, I mean, I've been hearing about literacy since I was 10, right?
Right.
Johnny couldn't read, and it's been the top thing for, gosh, for 50 years or something like that. And it's very rare for us to hear the other. So,
What?
do I have some?
Yeah,
Oh, your mask. It's okay. It was bothering Susan. Okay, so we can add numeracy. I think literacy and numeracy, I think those are overarching goals in our strategic plan anyway.
All right, so
But what I would
safety
like-
was up, there was three, right?
Yes,
There was
What
three.
the third?
community
Community
engagement.
engagement. So those three main goals are what we would like to talk about setting for next year for
Does anyone,
ourselves.
how does everyone feel about
Yeah,
this?
right.
Well,
Or add to,
I guess
change?
are we setting goals for the board or for the
Well,
school
these are
system?
for the board, but what we're gonna do is we're trying to keep,
That's where the literacy and numeracy, for the
Right.
board, I mean, I.
but there are things that we can, we
It'd
can
be
do,
helpful
like,
for
we
one
can,
time.
but
I like this, what she's gonna say.
if she's got premonitions. So what we talked about is the idea that when we do our community engagement, our school engagement, it would be nice if we go to not just our schools, our own schools, but to other schools. And there are things that we could do. For example, for numeracy, we could encourage or participate in school mathalons where they do different math activities, math Olympiads. We could do reading. We could go back to when I first started, we used to do a book reading at North Star and stuff. There was the corporate sponsors would get us books that we would do. I mean, we could do things like that in second grade. Say every second grade class gets a book and then the school board participates in reading to a class. You know, we can use the school ambassadors and those kind of things. So what we're trying to do is set goals that we can then link back to our strategic goals, but then we can focus when we're doing our own community
So
outreach.
one of the things, Maya and I had spoken about this, just when we met up a couple weeks ago, or before that, I think, actually. Yeah, I would like to see us establish an ambassador program sort of to our schools that, like the central office has there, where we spend a day in the school, either being a sub for a class. I don't know what the rules are on that, so you can tell me, but
Yeah. There are rules.
Well, I know there are rules, but
You can be
but
a
I think it
volunteer.
would be good for, we're setting policies for their schools, we're going based on what we see or what we hear, right, and what we read on our emails, stuff like that. So it might be nice for us to spend a day in the school, not just being toured by a principal during sometimes a dog and pony show, right? Like, it's like, look how great my school is. I know it is, but I'd love to see, and not just visit a class, but maybe teach a class and see what my teachers experience in trying to get kids' attention, trying to keep it, trying to understand.
Maybe,
Well, right, we're shadow
maybe,
teacher.
maybe spend a few hours in a classroom.
Right, instead of just running in and watching, like a 2-minute thing for it, but really to offer the support to the staff out there to show them that we are. And I mean, it wouldn't be every day, it'd be like, once a quarter or
Well,
once
so for
a year.
example, when I first got on the board, there was a teacher who unfortunately is no longer here, and she had a program where school board members were invited to be pen pals to
Yes.
students in her class.
We talked about that.
And then we were invited in to talk to the class and tell them about what we did and read a book and all of that. But that was one teacher who was doing that program, and she's not here anymore. So, those kinds of things we could certainly engage in, but
And that's,
it needs to be, like, I don't want to disrupt classes.
No, and I would leave it up to Thomas to really kind of identify how that would work and ways that we can provide help in the process, you know what I mean? Like, there's no reason
So one of the
why-
things that, like, it comes up is, are we overstepping our line, or are we in line? So one of the things in reading through the information that we were sent was, as a board, making instructional and academic goals that we want for our district. And how can it be measured? And one of the things that even Liza and I were talking to when we were talking about these instructional goals is that, even Ms. Towery will come up and she'll give us all of these acronyms for different tests, and maybe some of us understand them and maybe some of us don't. Even worse, our parents don't understand them. And our parents, you're given a number and my kid looks like they're in the green zone, so I guess that's okay. You don't understand it all. So even having, we would like to see increased progress and attention to literacy and numeracy, if we want to say both, and then have, get updates to say, hey, they're doing, a STEM night at this elementary school, and, you can go and see some of the highlights of the math, but also having opportunities for us. And maybe we come to a place where someone teaches us about how these MAP test scores really, what they're really for, what they really tell, who cares really about them, well, tell me why. And in the same time, we can be educating.
I can't, I'm sorry, it was the echo was driving me crazy.
Oh.
I can hear her
Do
twice.
you want to come? Oh, do you want to
I'll
come?
just move my seat.
You want to come?
Yeah, I'm moving my seat because I can't.
I guess
Technically, we have to have an open door.
Okay, right. I guess my question about that is, when I had kids in the schools, I would have teacher conferences, and I would go have a conference with the teacher, and then the teacher would show me the test score and would explain to me how to read it and what it meant and all of that. And so, I don't know whether.
I think in middle school and high school, though, that can tend to get washed away. The least the parents are in tends to be the thing that happens. I on purpose go in at 3 to 4 weeks when my kids were in there, because I'm like, let me talk to me before my kid's in trouble, and or I can help. I think my kid kind of thing. But I just think overall and in general, it might not all be there for the parents, and maybe having a session that's teaching us is available to the public.
Right. For me, the thing I have concerns about is that when data has been presented to us, it's been presented without any comparison. So I have no baseline to know whether that number means anything. It's just if you tell me right, if you tell me it's 63% pass rate, but I don't know what the state's pass rate is, and I don't know what the country's pass rate is, it's just 63%. Doesn't tell me if that's good or bad. And so for me, as a board member, I would like to receive data that I can actually make sense of.
So I completely agree. I have a very, data for me is, the variables that go into assessing the data are generally written somewhere, like, hey, we only considered this, 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 and this when we were looking at this. But when you're talking about test scores and stuff like that, like how really is Stafford County? We used a little bit of that in the beginning when we were talking about the pandemic stuff, Thomas, but at the end of the day, like each year it's difficult to say like, hey, did we increase from this or that level? Because how do we know then?
And we switch tests.
Well, right.
Yeah.
And we allow kids to opt out
Don't
of
get
that
too comfortable.
test, so how do we really know? So I'm a big fan of more data analytics, more ways to look in and really make the numbers mean something.
Well, maybe not more, just clearer.
Yes.
Right.
And
Right.
maybe some background, more background so we understand it, but also like utilizing, and I think the town halls are a great format because then parents and from all over the county can participate in things that they're interested in. So if we have a board development that teaches us more about the data and what we're looking for and how to evaluate, parents can also participate. So more of a countywide thing, which is kind of what, you've talked about doing.
Right.
And I think those that serve a board purpose are wonderful. I think they really are.
Are you talking about tying that into the objectives here, which I'm only going to this because I see the last one says develop 2 or 3 objectives. Are you talking about tying those in?
Yes, we're tying
as
those
one?
to those objectives. And then using, like, we all have different strengths and weaknesses. We all have, I think that we, and relationships, and I think that we have to work on things like communication and working as a team for a division, not for individual districts, because individual magisterial districts so much, because the school succeeds when we all succeed. The
Agreed,
division.
but we're also here to represent
Yes.
our districts and provide them with the boards because we're such a large
Well,
school.
but the thing is that some
Yes and no.
districts, some
Well, I agree,
districts, I mean, so I have what, 8 or 9 schools in my district?
I have one.
And you have 1 or 2.
Well, I mean,
You have
In.
Rocky Run and Heartwood.
Yes.
That's
that are
Colonial
in.
Forge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Colonial
Forge.
Forge.
right.
That's where they go.
Rodney Thompson and Gil
Right.
Middle.
You don't have Rodney.
That's not
That's
physically
not-
in your
it's not your
district.
Oh, that's.
Magisterial
Maybe your
district.
PO
I see
might
what you're
go.
saying. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So to me, I can't think that way.
Right,
I have to think about, I'm stretched at the moment. With redistricting, maybe it'll be different, but at the moment, I am the district with the most schools residing in that district.
Right.
And so.
Yeah. And like my kids, I don't have a high school, so my kids go to North and they go to, Brook Point. So we don't, our kids, even though we represent our constituents, our kids don't go to just the schools in our
Yeah,
district.
no, I hear you. I hear
So
you.
that's why I see a more,
I mean, you can't be a voice to Rocky Run and Heartwood. You have to be the voice for
Right,
than that.
right. No, I totally get that. And that's not an issue for me. I've said, I mean, I'm a Stafford County school board member, not a Hartwood school board member, but at the end of the day, it also helps for each district itself to feel that they have one person who's going to hear them.
Absolutely.
And that's why so I don't want to blur that line either, but I think that in terms of like creating objectives for these things, I mean, there's definitely ways that for crossover and stuff like that, but I still have a lot of ground to gain in getting to your guys' school. And I don't want to go without you for the first time or whatever, because that's your school, unless you tell me to go without you for the first time. But
I would say if you want to
This
go
is-
to any of the schools that are in my district, just shoot me an invitation. If I can come to you, I will, but if I can't,
That's
you are absolutely fine to go.
all right, cool, thank you.
Same,
Same.
I think the same thing to anybody.
Okay, cool.
As long as it's okay with the principal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the superintendent.
Well, I'll just copy you on the initial.
The other part that I think though, when we talk about community engagement is, in trying to think in terms of goals, is even thinking in terms of, and I don't say these as like checkpoints of, shame on you for not doing that. That is not what this is. These are objectives for us to kind of steer our way to. Like I said, when he first came into the county, I don't know where we're going. But, I feel like if we want to say, for community engagement, let's put on the board to attend 4 school tours and 1 not in your district. Maybe you can do that. Maybe you can't. Maybe it's super easy for you. Maybe it isn't. Attending 2 events a year and, you know, and one in your district and one not. And maybe it's a soccer game, maybe it's a choral concert, maybe it's, you know, a field day, or, you know.
The art shows,
Huh?
the block parties, there's all sorts of events that happen at different
Yeah.
schools that,
Absolutely.
that, you know, soccer games, lacrosse games, football games, there's all sorts of things.
Yeah, but I'm
If you
just
wanna
saying,
go to a kid thing, you know, my kids are,
Are you gonna ask us to drive?
we've got 2 in soccer, I've got everybody on a bell schedule.
Yeah.
Hook you up, whatever you wanna do.
but I'm just saying, like, even touching on places, you know, in your district, out of your district, just like you say, to kind of tie in the constituency and, you know, really know what you're talking about when, you know, you're sitting there going, my schools, and it's like, yeah, your schools are on an island compared to what my kids are going, you know what I mean? Like, I found when I worked on CIP, I sat at the table and I'm going, well, our schools are, and there's a, not up in the north, not in the west. And I'm going, oh, really? And it was so interesting to me to meet with people north, south, east, and west. One county, way different system for depending on where you are. So I just kind of think it opens our eyes, constituents see us in a light, friendly way. We're not running something, we're not, you know, showing something, we're not, like you say, dog and pony showing. It's just go. And so, you know, I think things like that, you know, maybe that we ourselves organize, we've done it in 2 years for one event, but maybe we can stretch ourselves to 2, where at Thanksgiving we can go to Rising Star and serve meals. And I know when I offered us to help, we were able to extend to 75 more families, or 75 more meals, 75 more meals that we were, because we offered delivery. Because it was only a certain number that could come, and then we actually drove around in neighborhoods. I divided up staff and board members, and we delivered meals to homes that couldn't otherwise come. So, you know, just
Susan, can I say also, I got this insight because I got a ride home from a board member, and their comment was like, oh, I didn't understand the logistics of Aquia Harbor like I do now from driving it.
Yeah.
And I will say that
home.
as a really huge advocate, when it came to redistricting, you guys didn't get what we were saying a lot. We could tell. I knew it because you ain't been there.
Yeah.
And okay, well,
I've been
Miss
here
Healy is
37
special, I
years.
know. But I don't think the message
end
was
of
like
Aquia
really
Harbor.
resonating, and it's because you
Yeah,
just
There
weren't
is no end
there.
to Quiet House.
And there is no end. My house is the end.
Well,
So
the third
I
section
think-
went right at the
Beginning and
Oh, excuse me, did you just say the third section was the dump?
It was the dump. When
That's
when I
not-
lived in Aquia Harbor, I was the 63rd family to move in, and the third section was the dump.
Okay,
We took our
decorum,
trash
please.
back
Let's not talk about my But so what I'm saying is, I think we do ourselves an injustice to our constituents. When I say that, I mean the entire county. When we actually live and rule and govern on an island, you know, like when Alyssa mentioned something about the students at this one particular school, there's snakes there. I said, what? You got my kids in schools with snakes? My kids aren't with kids. Yes, they are.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
we still need to talk about how we're going to figure that out. But like we should feel that way about all the students, you know. But as the elected official, the nuanced issues for that community, I think we're the best advocate for that, right?
Right.
But we still need to engage and go out so that we can understand and see. And I
Okay.
still haven't done it.
I don't hear anybody saying they don't think we should go to other schools outside our district. So the question is, how many times do you want to do it? Set as a goal.
Yeah.
You should set a minimum and then
See how we do.
go from there.
So let's say 4 school visits, a combination of in and out of your district, 2 community events.
Yes.
Great.
Okay. And then,
Why don't we set the goal for outside of your district, assuming that everybody's going to go in their district? I mean, do we really?
I think you should say both ways.
I just think 4 visits.
Four
I
is
think-
nothing. I mean, I've got
Well, say 6.
I've got 7 schools.
We can say any number you want.
I think what we're trying to do is
You're talking
establish
about
a
over the
minimum.
course of the
Establish a
year.
minimum.
A
that's what I
minimum
was
so
gonna
that
say, yeah.
everybody
Okay.
so everybody's showing some everybody's gonna probably do more. I think
We'll
that,
set a reasonable goal, though. I mean, don't set the bar low, set the bar.
Yeah, but I think there's a certain amount of assumption that you're gonna visit your own schools or whatever.
Well,
I
that's
think
what I
it's just a matter of making sure that on
Right, but if you say
paper.
your own schools, then Susan only has to make one visit, and like,
No, well,
she's done, right?
Well, I was gonna say,
All
well,
the
not just
schools
your
that the
district,
kids-
but my kids go to.
Yeah.
You can
Other
say all the
schools, yeah,
schools that the
right.
kids in your district go to.
Well, I'd say
Yeah.
new members, what is your goal for hitting every school? Like, I mean, I have hit every single school,
Yeah,
but, so what, I mean, COVID kind of made that a little challenging for some folks, but what's a reasonable goal for a board member
Probably your
to have
four-year
gone
term.
to all
That's what-
31, 32 schools?
I mean, heck, I don't care. Like, if you're gonna ask me to do it in 1 year, though, that might be
Yeah,
harder.
that's
but-
That's what she did.
But also, I'd also rather, if we're gonna do the invitation thing, and I'm like, oh, you know what, I wasn't thinking about going to that school, but, you know, if you know you're going to one of your schools, and just
Yeah,
shoot me
shoot
an
me an
email
email
and
back,
say,
sure.
Alyssa, I'm gonna hit this school, just if you have time, come with me, or whatever.
Sure.
Then that helps me knock a few out more than me, you know, trying to figure out how to bring everything in, because and plus, it minimizes the number of days we impact or interrupt that
Can we make
school.
this effective immediately, because Marty and I are both going to a school on Thursday.
Well,
Funny.
our goal is to try to set a minimum so that people are thinking about it.
Yeah,
And
that
I
would
don't think
be
it's, I don't think anybody's gonna get, beaten over the head if they don't meet 4 and 2.
No, I think.
But I
four-
also
think
think
it's
if everybody's gonna
Yourself,
do
it's
more
not-
than
You don't
that.
have to self-report and say,
Right.
hey,
Yeah.
I only, sorry, I only.
What about,
Those
It's
school
for
attendance
yourself.
officers will have to check us in too.
It's for yourself,
but
that's
what
it.
about, you know, within 2 years, you try to hit every school?
Yes.
I think we should keep it to the 1 year mark, though, otherwise you're gonna.
I don't, I think it's unreasonable.
it's
If somebody
hard.
has
It
a
is
job
so hard.
outside of
But I just say you do.
Stafford.
No,
I
I
don't
don't say you do every school in a year. I just say, let's make the goal for 1 year so that we can reassess and see where we want to grow and
Okay.
go.
And then all board members should at some point hit all schools. Visit all schools.
So
During their tenure.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
we
so
can
I
even say
actually
during
think it's
tenure.
important to say that with the intention, just something, simple language that, with the intention that all school board members, I would even say expected to sort of hit every school, because that is important. And maybe we can do it, like, in a year, I don't know.
I think a year is unreasonable. I
Yeah.
mean, some
But
of
I'm
the
saying,
schools
like,
are
within
really
their
far
tenure. I
away.
think within their
And you're gonna
tenure.
have to plan a couple hours. to
But I
go
mean,
to
if
some
there's
of
a,
these
like, if
schools.
there's a redistricting, it's really good to go to
Oh,
every
yes.
school that
Right.
might be affected by that redistricting.
Right.
So if
Yes.
you've already done it
And the
ahead of time,
community.
that helps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing we talked about is like
So what do you
the
think, say
volunteer.
4? I mean, I,
I was within their tenure. Within their
oh,
tenure.
every school.
Yeah, but what are we saying for the 1 year?
4
Because
and
we have
2. 4 and 2. Yeah. And then we
Four
have an
schools, 2
overarching
events?
goal is that all board members should visit every school at some point during their tenure. So I think that's
Okay.
reasonable.
Okay, so you got
Um,
23
Is
years
everybody-
on that. I think I've been there everybody.
She's like, I'm done.
It's not retro, it's going forward.
I'm going forward.
It's going forward,
I don't know how
nice
to
try.
use
The teacher should be able, we should be able to borrow this
Yes.
from her.
I like that, so
yeah.
I'm always
And I
really
think
being a
that
big man.
We
You know,
used to
I would
have
like to
school board
see us
meetings
do
at the
things
different
like,
schools.
what was it called, the book thing?
The one book?
One
One
book.
school, one book.
One school, one
Yes.
book.
And that I think ties into literacy too. You know,
And we can get a book with math in it.
Well, but I mean, I went
teach
to,
it.
I've got 3 books when I went to visit principals,
I
right?
see
Like
what
I've
you're
gotten the books
Yeah.
and have been reading the books. So
Yes.
yeah, if you go visit the school at the right time of the summer, you're likely to get handed one of the books.
Well, I'd even
So-
like to get a corporate sponsor to say, let's say all second graders get the same book in all of our schools, and then we read them to them. You know, because, and the reason I say second grade is because if they're not reading on grade level by
Yep.
3rd grade, they're screwed. So,
Yep.
so
I mean, good word.
frightening.
Not screwed, it's a challenge.
it's a challenge to bring them up to grade level.
Opportunity for growth.
It's an opportunity. But, I mean, I would like to see us do that's another possible activity that we could do.
I think that'd be, yeah.
I like it.
I'm all for that.
So,
I like that.
I would totally do
School board book club.
school
Oh,
board
yeah.
book club, yeah.
Not
And
as
if we get-
expensive as you think.
And if we could get a corporate sponsor, that would be nice. And I mean, there's a lot of businesses
And
in Charlotte.
honestly, when we did the Thanksgiving meal thing at Rising Star, Miss Massey asked us for a Thanksgiving book, and she picked one out, and I think it was part of like even one of the book fairs or something like that, and we were able to stick a book in every one of the meals that we handed out.
It's,
that's
you know,
nice.
and next year we could do like kindergartners and introduce, you know, welcome to school and one book for kindergartners. You know, we could change it up every
But you
year.
know what? Virginia Tech did that for their freshmen when my son was going there. They were given a book that they had to read.
You know,
All
I'd like to
freshmen.
do something for the new
Yeah.
teachers.
Oh, and that-
Maybe, you know,
okay.
I think that would be.
I think
And I
giving-
just wanted to
I
tell
think
you that
participating
Dan
in the
Reicher
Literature
and,
Institute Week was a really good thing for us.
and Melinda coming
Something
and
if
picking
you
up
could do
furniture,
something
I
when
just,
you're
came to my
for the
house
oh my
teachers.
God,
I'd like
I
to-
was
and
so,
that's just something
Let
I
that,
just
let's
heard.
let that be our
what a
second
day for
event
them.
that we do. The first
and
one,
they,
if we
they
do the
just
thank
did it with
you,
such grace,
Tuck
I
it
just
Yeah,
really
yeah,
Get
it's
some
a start the
suggestions.
dance.
Because we did that, my
The
first
truck
year
list
there
stuff,
was
yeah.
a dinner for new teachers.
A
And,
dinner?
yeah,
Yeah.
Where was that?
it was at
UMW Stafford.
UMW,
Okay.
and it was an
And they
opportunity
had
to actually talk, sit at a table with new
centerpieces and then
teachers and talk with
one of
them.
the teachers got like school supplies and
Right.
Well, I think the brewery idea was the best darn thing we've
Oh
ever
my
done.
God.
I'm still trying to get through Race to the Bottom. That one is depressing.
I'm still reading back to
It takes me a while. It's taking me a while to read that book because I have to put it down every now and again.
Gets intense.
Yeah, it does.
this is an aside, but Dr. Taylor and I were in a classroom up at Garrisonville, and it was a kindergartner from Park Ridge who got redistricted, meeting with the focus teacher. And she was telling us, no, she was of the first grade, how she's been reading chapter books since she was in kindergarten.
Aw.
She would have finished all those books.
Very precocious young lady.
And she
All right,
thought,
so-
she thought Garrisonville was cool.
So I want to go back to so we did from community engagement, right? Just to make sure I'm on track with this. And I know Maya said she was only giving us 30 minutes, and we're at 31. I'm just kidding. Professional development and the commitment to like taking classes. Like, what are we like? I'm not 100% sure what to take. Like, I've read.
So
Things?
I'll tell you, sort of I watch what's happening to the south of us. and I see people who have not gotten training they should have gotten.
Okay,
That's true.
so, yeah, so you're talking
Yeah.
like,
Just even on
So,
general.
well, you know what I'm saying, like, so you're talking like really like Robert's rules and all that stuff and getting like that general, continuing to enhance.
And that and just some of what you're allowed to do and not allowed
Well,
to do.
Lisa,
I think
Lisa
people
Bowden
should know,
gives
they
special
should know
lessons,
what your
like,
job
you
entails.
can't do that.
And they-
Right, right.
Well,
Like, for
it's like
instance,
asking Dr.
you have to
Taylor
have
what
a
you could do if you
superintendent
went
by
into
law.
school.
I don't think everyone knew
boundaries are.
that. I don't think that, but you should know that when you're sitting on the board.
Right.
And when you have the ability to hire and fire, you should know what you have to have in your arsenal in order for your school system not to collapse. I mean, everyone, you're never perfect. Everyone has to have continual education. I think I'm the best mom I've ever met, aside from my mother. I still read those stupid articles. My mother. I still read articles about being a good parent and child development, even though I'm like, crap, I did it wrong. But I still read that type of stuff because it's important.
No, I agree. I just want to make sure, like, I'm not, like,
right, and
I'm happy to read teacher literature too, but I'm not sure,
Well,
like.
I mean, for me, it's sort of like, I might go to a training that has to do with, let me see, what's a recent training that
Well, I did a recent cybersecurity
Yeah.
one, for an example.
Okay.
Because to me, cybersecurity, it's not a question of if we get hit, it's when. Because what they're doing is they're probing vulnerable networks and they're going to ask for a ransom. And there's a lot of small districts that have, all over the state that have been hit. So I went to the cybersecurity training and I learned quite a bit about, and then I came back and we talked about, do we do phishing exercises with our schools? Because when our high school students, one of them was phished and they
One of the
got
teachers
access.
that gets in
And
there.
I went to the conference, education conference with the VSBA, and they had a thing on, intelligent design of schools, and I was sort of like, oh, well, accessibility, and so it's just, we aren't all gonna go to all the same professional development and training, but if we all are going to some, we cover more area, right?
Right.
And then we can bring back
So that when
those-
topics come up, you can say, hey,
Yeah.
I took a class and I learned this. I mean, that's all the thing, like I said, with me, with Spotsy and the, knowing that our high schools weren't getting interventions and extensions, what could we do? That we weren't having activity buses. So now kids who wanted to do clubs couldn't be involved and, or get tutoring or things like that was a problem. So now with this new lunch thing that I learned about, the SBA listening to Spotsy do their presentation, I was able to talk. Do we have the same model? No. Do we do it our way? Sure.
Right.
So I think just being able to either, and this kind of brings me up to it just popped in my head because you said something, is one of the things that we have an advantage of at VSBA to do is they put you aside in rooms based on your regions. And so you get to talk about whatever hot topic is in your region. And it's not even like you sit in the audience and someone's instructing. It's literally get up and move around the room, talk with whomever your districts are, whatever conversation you want to bring up. And what if, for something, I don't know if you're even interested, is having like a hosting even, a region or 3 just school board social, where the school boards come and we get to do it
Spotsy
ourselves.
used to do it.
What's that?
Spotsy used to do it.
Oh, well. I'm just saying, that's a way to.
Yeah, we're doing the legislative thing.
Yeah, but to move around the room and talk about our legislative things so that we can pile on maybe and help each other. Or student discipline, what do you do for security, cybersecurity? How do you promote, whatever you want?
Internships and the school-based, work-based learning. There's a great program, I can't remember the name of the school district, it begins with a D. Great program. They do a great program. They do these rodeos where they come in and they show all the skills they've learned in their CTE training for employers. And most of them have job offers by the end of the day. I mean, they do all these really interesting activities. So a lot of times it's just interacting with other school boards to see, how do you guys do this? How do you guys handle workplace learning? Do you get any corporate sponsors? How do you pay for this? And a lot of times you can pick up information that's really, really
But
useful.
COVID kind of
A day.
Yes.
It's like that.
We didn't get that as an advantage.
Right,
Right.
and I think that's something that hopefully will ramp back up now. that-
But maybe we could be the ones who step out on that, like, invite who we want to come and do a talking.
Yeah.
They used to rotate.
Yeah.
The region used to rotate.
Okay. But maybe we can be the one to kick that up and say, what
let's do a
topics do
lecture.
we
What
want to?
Okay,
topics?
let's just appoint 2 people who can be our social directors and they can come up
Social
with.
impact.
I would
So-
like to do
Maya, too.
Maya.
Okay, Maya.
Susan.
So
No,
pick
seriously, come
2
up with-
topics.
All right, me and Maya.
2
we'll work on it.
topics for an in-depth somebody to present to us.
Sure, and that's training that we get, and
Well, that's
We
not the
get to bring in
social
who we
part,
want.
that's the educational arm.
Well,
Yeah.
we can,
Yeah.
but we can make
But
it
it's
so.
our professional goals.
Yeah, 2 professional developments that are, and we can invite other local
Wait, where are they
officials.
gonna be located? At the winery or?
oh my God, Maya.
It's
I'm
up to
sorry.
you. It's up to you.
Maya, I will show up and be there for you.
Thank you.
She'll be the bartender.
All right. So we want 2 professional developments.
topics.
Can
Okay.
you write that
And
down?
they-
Yes.
Sounds like Maya's the chair,
Okay.
my goodness.
All right.
I get to be chair or something.
Already are.
No, I'm not.
Oh,
So
okay.
are those professional
Wait.
developments?
Oh, you're vice
I'm
chair.
vice chair.
Board, or is that each of us? is going to
The
be-
chair and
No.
vice.
So they're 2 professional developments that will be for the whole board.
Right, and then is are board members supposed to also commit to trying to find some professional development thing to do on their own during the year? 1 thing, 2 things, 0 things?
Yes.
We can do
Yeah,
that.
I think that's reasonable. I mean, I really do. I mean, I know there's again, I've been since I.
But it could even be a book, like maybe
Right.
like you could bring Irresistible and give it, tell us to each get a copy and we'll have a discussion. That could be a professional development.
Sure.
Yeah,
So
that
it's
screen
book
addiction thing
based.
is huge. Yeah, that freaks me
And
out.
if you look at some of our issues that we're having with discipline, some of these things, honestly, when you see the repeats, you're like, oh, was that a TikTok video? Was that something? So Snapchat was listed
And like I
multiple
said,
Oh my
you
God.
can
I wrote down
filter
that
the
number.
Chromebooks all you
Yeah,
want, but
yeah.
if I got my phone, it's not gonna do it.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
2 independent professional developments and 2 group
Okay.
professional developments. And those professional developments can be, like I said, a book or anything.
But parents turn off the data when their kids get to school.
All right.
Can I do something else that I don't,
Yes.
this
Yeah.
might loosely tie in?
Yeah.
All of our teachers are required to be CPR, first aid certified, I don't remember which, and we should be too. I
Yeah.
think, it would be nice, like, I don't know how,
You know what, we can do that as a development because some of our bus drivers are actually leads and trained. Because I know my kid's bus driver, I needed it done
Do we have
for something else.
defibrillators in our schools?
It was one of the groups.
Yeah.
And they'll do it.
and I just wonder, like, if, I don't know if we outsource that for our teachers, like, do they do it over the summer, like, how do we make sure our teachers, if we're hosting CPR certification or first aid certification, like, tell me when the dates are, I'll go to
Yeah, we
that.
do it ourselves.
We have trainers.
So if
So
you
we can
just
come
give
to-
us the dates, then we can come, and I think we should, if everybody else in our buildings is required to do so, lead by example, right?
Yeah.
It depends on what
day of the week it is and what.
Well, I think if there's flexibility in the
Yeah, maybe
calendar,
we could
if there's
just get a
multiple
calendar
dates, if
weather
we're
offer
doing it.
that
If you
we
can
can
hold
maybe
it
pick
at
and
31
choose.
different schools, then we can hit all of this. I'm just
So frequent,
yeah.
Yeah.
It
all
is.
year round.
Yeah,
That's
it
what
is.
I'm saying, like,
It's year round, because I think.
But it's not something I really thought about, and I was like, yeah, we should probably do that, I think that would be good for us.
That'd be a good professional development too.
I- It's a good opportunity for us to be with
CPR certified.
Other people who are getting certified for the same reason.
That's true.
All right, does anybody have anything else to add?
I don't think so.
All right, and we are done with 5 minutes to spare.
Alrighty. Thank
Nice
you.
working with you, ladies.
Bye, Susan's mom.
Oh my
So,
God.
so are you typing up all the notes?
I got it, I got it, I got
Good.
it.